Doesn't look like the rain's gonna stop. It is only drizzling a little bit. I always makes me wonder if I can find, like, say, just a forest place that's covered where you can just flex or practice around the trees and stuff like that. Okay, I hope the wind's not gonna kill the mic. And the stuff that I read today. This one was kind of old apparently, the video, but apparently it just surfaced recently. It has something to do with people on an airplane and there was a child screaming in it. Well, I guess that's nothing too dramatic or out of the ordinary. Apparently the kid was crying for 8 hours straight throughout the whole flight. Holy cow, I'm just trying to imagine that for people. 8 hours straight for the kid crying. Although to my understanding, everyone was kind of, I don't know, it's understanding the word, like they get it, like it's a kid, but still, 8 hours, holy cow. It was kind of interesting reading the articles that came out because of it, like how to stop your child from crying, like be prepared on the plane. Always have things like snacks or a tablet handy. I don't know, it just seems a little weird to me when you read stuff like that. This one was kind of interesting because it had to do with finding missing people with drones, because it made me think of that story in Canada where they didn't want basically just regular drone flyers helping with a search for a 3-year-old child. This one says, family had a girl missing in the dark. Moore County Sheriff had a drone, case closed. Apparently it was that simple. So from what I read here, apparently there was an 11-year-old child that was missing and she was gone for about 15 minutes or something like that. And then just shortly after, this person had a drone, like the sheriff's office I believe, with a thermal camera, and just like that, they found the person's heat signature and case closed, like they said. So that's kind of interesting. That's kind of like what a lot of people say. If they have the resources, then you gotta send it out there right away. But it makes me think, what if you don't have those resources in your local area? Should like a regular person like me just be able to do it, or no? Like I should just stay grounded, for example. And the biggest news that caught my attention today had to relate with video games and violence in relations to that shooting in the US recently, where that former student went into his old school with an assault rifle and started shooting a bunch of people, which unfortunately a lot of people lost their lives. And apparently people are blaming video games for that. And there's supposed to be some kind of meeting or something like that where they're basically thinking, okay, something has to be done because video games are the cause of why, I guess, younger people or anyone in general wants to like shoot people and so forth because it encourages violence. And apparently there was someone in the US, a Republican Kentucky governor, Matt Bevin, he made this statement saying, there are video games that yes, are listed for mature audiences, but kids play them and everybody knows it, and there's nothing to prevent the child from playing them. They celebrate the slaughter of people. There are games that literally replicate and give people the ability to score points for doing the very same thing that these students are doing inside of schools, where you get extra points for finishing someone off who's lying there begging for their life. So essentially saying it's catering people to do mass shootings and stuff like that. And it says here, we need to have an honest conversation as to what should and should not be allowed in the United States as it relates to things being put in the hands of our young people. That's what the person said. You look at the culture of death that is being celebrated, Bevin said during a radio interview. And apparently why this came up today is there's supposed to be some kind of meeting with the US president about the game industry and about violent games in general, like what they can do about it. And apparently the Entertainment Software Association has no input or say into it. So it's basically, to my understanding, just a bunch of political people talking about it. Reading topics like this personally just reminds me of everything else that kind of shares similar traits to people trying to find blame for something in that case. Whether it be like things like the drones right now, which is one of the bigger hysterias, just still video games blaming them as the main cause for someone to do something. I mean, in my opinion, when it comes to things like video games, it comes down to your environment. How is the environment around the person in general? That is the main cause, in my opinion, for things like gun violence. I mean, just speaking for myself, I play video games. I played a lot of violent games. How about games like, for example, Mortal Kombat, where kind of like it's expressed there, when you finish defeating the person, finish him. Do you see me going out on the streets, for example, ripping people's heads off, uppercutting them down like some path of spikes and stuff? No. Because for me, I understand that is fake, is not real. And one funny thought too, just about things like, for example, you can't control, for example, kids are gonna play these games, they're gonna see this, so you have to do something about it. I mean, if we wanna talk about things like violence, media, or whatever like that, you know, funny enough for me, the most violent sources of media and all that is the news. Like for me personally, every time I flip on a channel, someone's getting bombed, someone's getting killed and all that stuff. Isn't that the same thing? Like, would you say the same thing? Well, there's a discretion there. Is a kid not gonna watch it because the video becomes viral on YouTube all of a sudden? Kind of like that crying kid video, but imagine something more violent. Do you not think kids are gonna watch that as well? I mean, to me, it comes down to things like the environment and things like the parenting, for example. There's no excuse for that. Like, just using the example of that kid screaming in the airplane, is it safe to say, for example, every kid in the world in an airplane is gonna act exactly like that kid? What would you blame for that? If there was something to blame, so to speak. Like, I don't know the whole story, but I would imagine one of the reasons that kid does that is because the parent isn't doing something to essentially tell the child, no, don't do that, it's not right. Can you blame like a TV or a tablet, a snack or whatever because they do that? I would say it's the parent in general. I would say it's the same thing as well when it comes to things like the video games. Kind of reminds me of that show, what was it called, like Nanny 911 or something? That's kind of crazy. You see these kids, they're so out of control, yet they discipline them and then all of a sudden they get fixed. So again, it's about the environment, in my opinion. If you want to fix things like that. I can only speak for myself. I mean, everyone here, you guys know, I play video games, for example. I play it for fun. And for me, video games were a way just to actually, in many ways, it made me more open-minded and it gave me kind of a, I guess, a safe place to kind of know the rights and the wrongs. And this is just me personally. Like, for example, just say regular things like shopping, like playing, like say, a role-playing game. For those who don't know, that's something where you basically go to different towns, for example, you buy items, gain experience, like learning things financially. I bought this weapon from one town, it cost like 1,000 gold, and little did I know, the next town they sell the same thing for like 500 gold. I'm like, oh my god, why didn't I just wait? And that actually taught me like a lesson in life in terms of things like finance. Don't always just buy the first thing that you see. Try to think about it. Do you actually need this? Can you survive without it? Or at the same time, like with the role-playing games, I found as you leveled up, I didn't actually need to buy that stuff because I naturally became stronger, where why couldn't I just save my money instead for when I actually really did need stuff like that? Or are you gonna say because I played role-playing games and you go to the store to buy weapons, now you see me going to a place buying a sword, attacking people to gain experience to level up? Come on. Like, I know the difference between like reality and fiction. We should treat this like a video game. Let's go exploring, how's that? And just for myself, one of the things that actually playing games taught me was to be more tolerant, like not to prejudge people. Like whether it be things in real life when it comes to things like, say, being prejudiced against certain groups of people or racism. Because in video games, many times, in the games that you play, there could be, quote, human-looking characters versus characters who look completely different, like a monster or something like that. But yet you interact with them as if they're, you know, just like a regular person. And you basically judge them not by how they look or so forth, it's based on what they do. Because they could be on your side basically, going against, say, the quote, bad guy. That's a lot of sniffing. Whoa! That's a random dog. So in my opinion, overall with things like that, instead of just blaming one thing in particular, focus on everything else. Like, again, the culture, the surroundings, how people deal with things. Like, I don't know the whole story with that thing, but if that kid was expelled, who knows? Like, did they do it in a productive way, or was it done in a way just saying, hey kid, you're stupid, you're suspended because now you're not one of us, so to speak? Like, did you make the kid feel isolated in that way? Or did you try to use things like, you know, positive reinforcement or something like that? There's so many more things to look at as opposed to just one little thing. Because again, if it's things like just video games that cause that, then you gotta look at everywhere else in the world too to see whether or not they have the same kind of phenomenon in that case, with the way it's being presented anyways. Alright, guess I have to look for some archive stuff for today. Alright, see you guys later.